A reading from the Gospel according to St. John. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands, so that you may love one another. I'm giving you these commands so that you may love one another. Note the link there between the two statements. I give you these commands so that you may love one another. Jesus is saying that following his commandment enables us to love one another. The second is a consequence of the first, and in researching upon this passage for today's reflection, I was intrigued to note that not all translations of Jesus' words include those two key words, those words, so that. Many translations simply have a comma, and others still translate it as follows: this I command you, love one another. Which I find interesting. Those words, so that, cause us hearing these words to look for which commandment Jesus is referring to. Which commandments do you mean, Jesus? Is the natural first response. But I also wonder if Jesus was perhaps trying to give his listeners a helping hand. He, being fully human as well as fully divine, knew that loving one another is not always the easiest thing to do. I ask, how many times in our lives have we found ourselves angry at somebody else's conduct? How many times have we, perhaps even secretly, held a grudge against someone, no matter how much we try not to? Frankly, I think it's part of the human condition. And when we do find ourselves in enmity with someone, what do we do about it? More to the point, what can we do about it? One option, and it's a perfectly valid one, is to ignore or strive to forget about it, perhaps to pretend that the offending comment or action simply never happened. Another way of putting that is that we can opt for amnesia, and it works a lot of the time. It works by freeing us from our frustrations and anger, but it doesn't, of course, actually address the cause. Another option is to reflect upon our own response and challenge ourselves as to whether our response is rational and reasonable, to challenge whether it's right to be angered in the first place. It is possible that the problem is actually with ourselves and not somebody else's behaviour, and occasionally we might need help with this. That's where having really good friendships will help us. Good friends, I would always hope, would have the bravery to challenge us when it is us who are actually in the wrong and not somebody else. But when our anger is justified, what we might call a righteous anger, it's necessary to address the cause of that anger. And then again, we need help. How do we approach loving someone while still confronting them about their errant behaviour? And that is where I think Jesus was giving guidance to his disciples. How do we show that we love someone? By following Jesus' commandment that immediately preceded it in the Gospel. Love as I have loved you. Jesus didn't hang on the cross uttering exemptions. He didn't separate out by sex, by race, by creed, by nationality, by sexuality, by gender identity, by legal status, or any other division that we can think of. He died once, and he died for all. By remembering that each and every one of us, whether liked or not, whether similar to us or different, whether respectable, whatever that means, or one whom the secular world brands despicable, all are welcome at Christ's table. All are loved, and all are lovable. When I was a younger man, I was angling once for a promotion at work, and a more mature and senior colleague advised me that the best way to get promoted was to behave as if you already had the job, to walk the walk of the role you seek to inhabit, such that your own promotion becomes a natural progression. I fear the same logic applies here. If you want to love, try doing some loving. And when we look at it that way, we realise that we can rewrite that line from John's Gospel, Love as I have loved you, so that you might love one another. Or, to put it even more simply, love so that you might love.